you are listening and watching. Welcome to today's show, and I am very pleased to welcome one of my good friends who covers the Memphis Grizzlies, does a wonderful job covering them, along with myself and others over at Grizzly Bear Blues. But what this man is known for, and rightfully so, is his excellent coverage of the Memphis Hustle, and that's why he's joining us today. Brandon Abraham, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, Shawn. Better than your Vols. Played well for 15 minutes, but just Georgia's a different monster.
Hey. It was about 25 minutes, okay? All right, we'll take that. And, hey, we're riding high. The Braves won the World Series. Titans are number one in the AFC. And the Grizzlies, well, we have the Braves and the Titans. I'm kidding. But that's the reason why we have Brandon here. Of course, thank you so much for all that are joining us today. You can find the show at Locked on Grizz, myself at StatsSAC, Mr. Abraham at BC Abraham, all on Twitter. The podcast, wherever it's available, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, the Odyssey app. On YouTube, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Lets us know that you love the show. Lets others be able to find the show. Lets everyone enjoy the show's experience. And also want to remind you, after you make Locked on Grizzlies your first listen of the day, check out the Locked on NBA podcast, free on all podcast platform, also on YouTube. Wherever you find Locked on Grizzlies, find Locked on NBA as well. But Brandon, before we get into talking about the hustle, let's talk a bit about the Grizzlies. And there's plenty to talk about, unfortunately, but not so much in a positive way. I think that the last 48 hours have probably been the worst 48 hours of basketball we've seen from this Grizzlies team, at least during this new regime's, existence over the past, 2+ years. Your thoughts on the Grizzlies? I talked about it yesterday. I feel that there are a few simple things that they can commit to getting on the right track. This thing can get turned around. But your thoughts on the Grizzlies, kind of running into a slump here over the past week?
It's obviously concerning. I don't mean to, discredit that, but I also think a lot of people, enjoyed the very high of the way the Grizzlies started the year, and then they don't know how to handle the low after that hot start. And I mean, understandably so. You have to come back from 16 to beat the Timberwolves on Monday. Charlotte kind of, Kelly Oubre just destroys us. Friday against Phoenix was just terrible defensive effort. And then I do think the loss against the Pelicans is a little bit overblown. They're not as bad as their record suggests, especially now that they got Brandon Ingram back. But I mean, it's definitely not the best time, but I do think a lot of it's just overblown disappointment, just with how Grizz Twitter especially loves to ride the high super high, and the lows just send them straight down to the bottom.
Yeah, and I think that that's a fair case. Youth, it's one of those things, youth is relevant in what's going on. You're going to get this polarizing high, you're going to get this polarizing low, but it's also not an excuse, especially when we know just how good this group collectively can play. We just got to play defense like that. That's what it comes down to. That's really what stands out about this. I talked about it yesterday. The Grizzlies shooting the ball from three like a bottom 5 team in the league, and then being the worst team defending the three in the league. You mentioned it yourself. You're not going to win many games shooting 23% from the three-point line. But beyond that, Brandon, me and you have talked about it over at Grizzly Bear Blues a few times. What stands out to you is not necessarily the biggest concern. What, besides the shooting and defending the three, stands out to you as if the Grizzlies can just correct this, it's going to solve a lot of issues?
I think a lot of it's going to be Dillon Brooks's return. I think, percentage-wise, I don't know how much it helps the three-point shooting from an individual basis. Like, Dillon's obviously a fine three-point shooter, but, he's very streaky. But I think, his return as a whole will help set the tone more for the team. Like, he's, like, as great as Ja is, Dillon's really kind of the tone setter, especially on the defensive end of the court. So I think he brings, like, a certain swagger that, there's games where, I remember last year, a game against the Bucks, the Grizzlies were down big in the first half, and Dillon single-handedly got them back in the game. Ja obviously has the ability to do it, but it's nice having that other person who can kind of help take pressure off Ja, help alleviate a lot of what Ja has to do, his usage rate. So I really think a lot of it's just getting Dillon back into the picture and getting him caught up to speed and just comfortable in the next few games.
And I think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to Dillon Brooks. Obviously, his skill set, being a two-way player, I think, as much as we're hoping he helps the defense, his offense has been a breath of fresh air as well, basically being that consistent, even number 2 option at times to Ja. But of course, the other thing that stands out is just the mere minutes distribution that happens as well. With Dillon Brooks being back in the fold now, you go basically 9 deep. Ja, Desmond, Dillon, Jarrett, Steven Adams in the starting lineup. And then you've got Tyus, Kyle, Brandon Clark, and D'Anthony Melton, obviously, in the bench. That's one heck of a 9 if they can play defense. But this also means that while that should mean that more minutes are going towards more talented, more impactful players, you do have some other players who I know are near and dear to your heart, at least when it comes to John Konchar. But also you've got Xavier Tillman as well as Ziaire Williams. The minute distributions for those three, you know that John Konchar is a favorite of Coach Taylor Jenkins. Ziaire Williams' development probably is the priority of those three, and Xavier Tillman is probably the one that you can trust to make the most impact. But just out of those three, how do you think their minutes should be handled moving forward?
I think it's probably a little matchup based. I mean, as big of a Konchar guy as I am, he should get spot minutes. He should not be playing heavy minutes. The minutes he's been playing have been a bit too much. I mean, I think over the past week, him becoming the scapegoat's been a little ridiculous. The 10th guy off the bench isn't the reason you lose by 30 to the Suns. But overall, like his skill set is best used kind of in case of emergency type, or if are in a kind of a rut, you need someone to come in and make hustle plays. And then I kind of go with a little bit of the matchup based between Ziaire and Tillman. If you're playing a bigger team, I think you can give Tillman minutes, let him shine because I mean he's great. He's just kind of stuck in a weird logjam with himself, Brandon Clark, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Steven Adams. Let alone trying to get Kyle Anderson minutes at the 4. He's kind of his position puts him out of the rotation, and Zaire's kind of the future. You need Ziaire to be great. So I mean I think he should be that 10th guy on most nights. Depending on how he's playing, there could be some nights where you switch it up, but the team this year will obviously want to be more competitive. It's not as much about data accumulation, but they also want to accumulate data on Ziaire Williams. Like they drafted him and we're eyeing him with the 10th overall pick for a reason. And, we're not at a point to where your first round draft picks just ride the bench and play in the G League. He's getting meaningful minutes. I think he needs to, because, even if it hurts you a little bit now, in theory, it should help you 2 to 3 years from now.
Yeah, and the thing that I'll say is in this 2021 draft, Brandon, it seems like kind of the cutoff point between players that are contributing at the NBA and players that right now are contributing in the G League is that 10th spot. Because from Davion Mitchell before him, you've got players, I believe Jonathan Kuminga is mainly playing for Golden State. But what I'm getting at is those players are mainly playing in the NBA. But we know that James Bouknight is playing for the Greensboro Swarm, and I believe that Josh Primo, who is number 12, is playing for the Spurs G League team. Do we feel that Ziaire Williams could get some action for the Hustle, or do you feel that could really help his development, or do you feel that he mainly should be staying with the NBA team? I get the feeling he's going to stay with the Grizzlies for most, if not all, the season.
It's a peculiar question, Shawn. I think what will happen and what should happen are a little bit of two different things. I think he would benefit a little bit from getting assigned to the Hustle and just having games where he goes out there and can, shoot the ball 15, 20 times. Like just go out there, score, play your game, just try to, get reps, because he's shown confidence with the Grizzlies, but he's still, you can tell, playing a little nervous, So I think a Hustle assignment could be very helpful to his development, helping him gain confidence. But since he's so entrenched in the Grizzlies rotation, seemingly only one coach's decision did not play. So it'll be interesting to see, kind of what they do with it, but I'm not really expecting him to get Hustle minutes, but I think, if it came down to it, it would be very helpful.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that reps are certainly something that right now in his career really stand out as being a big thing. Him getting those repetitions, that practice that can definitely do. But before we get to the Hustle itself, I want to tell you about a source that you should hustle to, and that's Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a great source when it comes to a new spin, when it comes to daily fantasy. It has the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. Prize Picks allows for you to be able to do any prop, whether it's a starter in the NBA or a bench player. And it's not just the NBA. You can also do it with Patrick Mahomes in the NFL or LeBron James. You pick 2 to 5 players, and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry that you put in, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. Don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com and use the promo code NBA, or go to your app store and download the app today. Prize Picks is your daily fantasy made easy. Now, while me and Brandon certainly enjoy the Memphis Grizzlies, we absolutely cannot stand choices when it comes to college. I'm a huge Tennessee fan, the best football team, college football team in the state of Tennessee, while Brandon cheers for the Memphis Tigers. Nothing against that at all. It's just the Vols are the best college football team in the state of Tennessee. But regardless of that, listen, hey, it's football and basketball season. We might like to watch a basketball game than a football game, but if you're sitting here wanting to watch games, yeah, you may have to steal somebody else's password, may have to watch it on a laptop, TV, phone, all that. One way to avoid doing that is DirecTV Stream. It's a great way for you to not have to worry about the hassle anymore, and it brings you live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directv.com. That's directv.com. Compatible device required. Contents vary by package. Obviously, we want to thank you for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen of the day. I was just kidding when I was talking about me and Brandon having this rivalry when it comes to college football. But the new rankings are out, and whoever you liked or will be coming out this week, whoever you cheer for in college football, check out the Locked On College Football podcast of your choice as your second listen of the day. But let's hustle right back into this conversation. I have really overused that segue, but yet here we are. So Brandon Abraham, obviously Mr. Hustle, has done a great job over at Grizzly Bear Blues for a few years now, covering the hustle. And Brandon, first off, I want to congratulate you. You have gotten through some very, as you said, the word peculiar setups when it comes to the G League over the past few years. I'll just start with this question. How nice is it to finally be back to having normal coverage of the G League once again, at least to an extent?
It's been phenomenal.
Yeah.
The access was tricky in the bubble. Corey Moore, head of the Hustle PR, did a great job. Can't say enough about Jason March and all the Hustle players for, how accommodating they were and, willing to do interviews, things like that, before, after games, off days for podcasts. It's just something about being there in person. It just helps so much. Being there in person, not even just from the media aspect, but just being able to watch the game, getting to see the interaction of Jason March, kind of being a sarcastic with the refs, one hand arguing, the next, telling them great call when they clearly missed a call, but it went in the Hustle's favor. Just the little antics, things like that you only get sitting on the sideline. It's been great. I'm glad they're back in South Haven. You know, it was unique last year. It was intriguing, but I think everyone involved is glad we're pretty much normal.
And the thing that I'll say is this is beyond the excitement of having the G League back to normal, beyond the excitement of it seems like with this 2021 draft class, you're going to have an exciting matchup between the Hustle and teams all along. There is so much depth on this Hustle team. Now, you've got your first layer of it with Jarrett Culver, as well as Santi Aldama, Sam Merrill, Killian Tillie, Eve Pons, those guys that are going to be involved with the Grizzlies at some point. But you've also got some exciting talent. Matthew Hurt, a former top prospect from Duke, is on the team. Freddie Gillespie had some good moments with the Raptors in the past as well. He's got some NBA experience. I believe I've got that correct. I think I'm thinking of the same guy. But the thing that I'm looking at is there are layers. There is a level of depth on this Hustle team that hasn't been there before. Plus, you have regulars like Shaq Buchanan. We know the special relationship between him and Ja from their Murray State days. This depth for this Hustle team means there's many players that can be exciting to watch, and any one of them can step up on a given night.
Yeah, it's a great. It is a little intriguing to see how the Grizzlies play it out because they clearly expect to have a lot of guys down on assignment on most game nights. The Hustle currently have 10 guys on their active roster, which is quite a handful lower than most teams typically do, but that's so they have the space for the assignment guys where they're not having to make cuts and signs every couple of days. But on days where the fivesome of Aldama, Tillie, Culver, Culver, Merrill, and Pons, the days they're not there, the Hustle still have a solid squad. They can still go 10 deep. You mentioned Shaq. Ahmad Caver's a really great offensive spark plug. David Stockton, when he's healthy, is really kind of your prototypical point guard. You got Darnell Cowart, another Murray State guy. He's kind of like, I love him just because he plays so free, and it's just kind of funny, with he's kind of like a poor man's Jokic in a sense, where he's a big guy down low, but he's not afraid to try just kind of crazy passes, dribble the ball, things like that. So they've got a bunch of young, exciting, fun talent mixed with some vets and Reggie Hearn, who has struggled so far with the Hustle, but is a usual 3-point marksman in the G League. And imagine once he gets comfortable, that'll skyrocket. And you also got Sean McDermott, who, if he can ever get and stay healthy, is a nice, 3-point shooter athlete who can make, some nice putback dunks. So the depth's solid. A lot of it's going to depend on the availability of the assignment guys, especially with the first 12 games of the season kind of being the intro into the Showcase Cup. But as long as they have those guys more available than not, the Hustle are in a pretty good spot.
So, Brandon, this is something that I've always wondered. So, me and you are both fans of the Atlanta Braves, of the 2021 World Series champion Atlanta Braves. And the reason why I bring that up is because the setup that you have in baseball when it comes to the minor leagues, and basically the G League is the basketball minor leagues, you've got the front office that through their analytics, they set up a pitching plan for a minor league pitcher. It goes through the plan of the major league pitching coach down to the minor league pitching coach to have a pitcher maybe work on change-ups a little bit more than he usually would in this type of game setup. Maybe the next time work on a fastball or something like that. Is it similar in basketball when it comes to the G League, incorporating what the Grizzlies want for a specific player? Like if the Grizzlies front office, Zach Kleiman and his analytics staff, they really want to see Santi Aldama handle the basketball. Is that an emphasis that they're going to ask Jason March and his staff to really focus on? Or do the Grizzlies kind of leave the Hustle alone to just coach the team as they see fit? I hope that question makes sense. I'm just trying to figure out what the communication chain is like for when the Grizzlies want to see something specific with one of these young players.
So the communication is there. They have a great relationship between the Grizzlies and Hustle. Obviously with the Grizzlies owning the Hustle, they have the final say really, but obviously the relationship's going to go to crap if they're too demanding or if Jason March doesn't do what they want. Everything that I feel like I'm obviously probably the most plugged in with the Hustle, and they have a great communication relationship with the Grizzlies organization. And so, to go further into your question, they do have various things that they work on. Ivan Rabb, a couple of years ago when he was being sent down on assignments, like his big thing was kind of getting up 3-point shots, helping space the floor. So talking with Jason, their goal was to have him have 3 or 4 3-point shot attempts, not forced, but in the flow of the offense per game. And, obviously it didn't work out with Rabb in Memphis, but like that part of his game did grow. We talked to Sam Merrill after the game last Sunday, and I guess probably 8 days from when this is live, but he, said they kind of have a lot of different things they're working on. And his is kind of being more of like a point guard. Like he had all sorts of responsibilities at Utah State, but kind of has its prototypical shooting guard style of play and body. So he's working on his ball handling, his passing out of the pick and roll, being able to just run the pick and roll efficiently, and kind of learning the different reads. Since it's obviously a lot more in depth at the G League and NBA level compared to college. The other assignment guys I haven't gotten the chance to speak with yet. But there is a game plan coming down. To your point, I mean, the game last week when they had 4 of the 5 guys with Pons being a late scratch, they started Freddie Gillespie at center, and then Killian Tillie and Santi Aldama on the wing in the front court. That's a pretty sizable front court. So, and they used both Tillie and Aldama to bring the ball up the court, along with Sam Merrill as well. But and Culver did it a little bit. He kind of really was probably out of the 4, not including Gillespie, struggled the most with the lead ball hand duties, but they used Aldama and Tillie to kind of push the pace, the tempo, similar to the way you see a Jaren Jackson do it, like a Kyle Anderson in a sense. So it's definitely they have various things they work on. I know the key thing is just getting them reps and getting them ready. Taylor Jenkins always talks about that next man up mentality. And he think, clearly with the G League reps, they try to do that to help them be ready for when their name is called. But there are plenty of things that they are kind of focused on and working on. And Jason is, kind of the orchestrator of all that.
Obviously, there's so many players that we can go through, but a couple of names that we're going to get into in the third segment, we're going to get in depth with, is Killian Tillie and Santi Aldama for a specific reason regarding the Grizzlies in the future. But I want to talk a bit about Sam Merrill and Jarrett Culver. Now, two players who have come from completely different paths to the NBA. But if I'm correct, I believe both of them now have 1 year left on their contract. So it's really an opportunity this year for both of these players to try to make the most. It's not going to happen at the NBA level, more than likely, but trying to really be able to make the most, carve out some type of situation similar to what a Josh Jackson did 2 years ago. What do you see from them as far as their opportunities go with the hustle? Do you see one of them really being able to take control of the situation and maybe be able to carve out some interest next offseason at the NBA level? Even if their future is not with the Grizzlies, a great season from them with the hustle could lead to great opportunities in the future.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because Sam Merrill's probably, like, including kind of preseason as well, shined a lot more than Jarrett Culver. In their one game with the hustle, Merrill had 20 points, shot the ball well, but he also like displayed being able to score at three different levels. Culver had 14 points, but it was very kind of more of a streaky game, 14 points, 6 rebounds. But he just kind of like it was inconsistent, kind of like what we saw in the preseason. Whereas we saw Sam Merrill in his extended minutes, especially against the Pacers, drop 30 points. And so definitely, I mean, I think with the way Sam Merrill plays, he could be kind of a very nice in the bench guy for the Grizzlies. I think he very well may play out of a cheap contract to stay in Memphis, but I think he is more likely to play himself into a nice contract next year, or at least whether it's Memphis or another team, have a role. Culver is similar to Josh Jackson, where he's I think a fine player. I question like Josh Jackson when he was with the Hustle was dominant. He took over. It was one game, but Culver just didn't have that takeover capabilities. So it'll be interesting to see if he does do that. He'll probably still get a chance just being a former lottery pick. But if I kind of had to peg, put all my chips in on one guy, it'd be Sam Merrill. Just his 3-point shooting's been consistently good, and just like the way he's been able to play and kind of take advantage of his opportunities really stands out.
Agreed. And also, I think the thing that also stands out with Sam Merrill that really does matter with the Grizzlies is that he has the one trait that really aligns with what Taylor Jenkins wants to do, and that's shooting the three. And it's the capability of shooting the three at a high level. Before we get back into the hustle and why, after this year, the role for the hustle in the Grizzlies' plans could be even bigger as a source of helping the Grizzlies get depth moving forward. I can tell you this, one great option for you to be able to get a boost to your day is through Built Bar. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. Have it in the morning for breakfast, have it in the afternoon as a snack. Whenever you choose to enjoy Built Bar, it's going to make your day better. Go to Built.com, choose from over 18 different flavors that you can enjoy, but also you can put in the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order from Built Bar. Again, go to Built.com, put in the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your next order from Built Bar. Want to thank you again for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen of the day. I'm very happy to welcome my guest, Brandon Abraham. We're about to get talking about the Memphis Hustle once again. But for your second listen today, make sure to check out Locked On Bets. It's been a great source of successful bets here in the recent past. Check on Locked On Bets with your boy Q every day for the latest and best bets from around the sports world as your second listen of the day. So, Brandon, looking at how things are going to work out for the Grizzlies. This now, for the Grizzlies, after this season, you now are going to make a transition for this team, not just from being a rebuilding team to a sustainable winner, hopefully, but the payroll as well. Next year, you've got nearly $30 million already on the books committed to Jaren Jackson Jr. The year after that, you're going to have a lot committed to Ja Morant. Maybe after that, Dillon Brooks, so on and so forth. Basically, a fewer amount of players are going to take up a bigger part of your payroll. So finding good value at cheap costs is going to be huge. And to me, that's going to make the role of the hustle and the development system with the hustle even more important. So the Grizzlies maybe can get a player or two every year to be a part of the rotation from the hustle. Is that how you see it? Is the role and development of players at the hustle, at the level of the hustle, going to become more important as the Grizzlies' payroll becomes a little bit tighter with the big commitments they've got coming up to players?
Absolutely, and I think the Grizzlies have been a step ahead, 2 steps ahead than a lot of NBA franchises. I think really the only teams you could argue that have been better with incorporating their G League team and their G League success to the NBA level are the Miami Heat and the Toronto Raptors. They really kind of started a trend of one kind of the Exhibit 10 deals. The Grizzlies were one of the first teams that started signing guys to that at the G League level, which is really nothing more than giving them a little bit more money and building up those relationships. But on the actual basketball court, you have a team, that mirrors themselves after the Grizzlies. They have similar plays, similar sets. They try to replicate the same style. So you're not going to have the Grizzlies playing their fast-paced game and then the hustle, with the throwback grit and grind, pound the ball in the post. They try to replicate everything that the Grizzlies do. So if like you was talking about earlier with Sam Merrill, the three-point shooting, all that is fantastic. As the books tighten up, and we even see it a little bit this year with the assignment guys, it's a great chance, excuse me, for guys to get reps when they otherwise wouldn't, as well as kind of finding hidden talents, hidden gems. Because to your point, with so much money tied up to the key guys in the coming years, you have to find those cheap deals, whether it's Aldama on a rookie contract or you get lucky and get someone like the talent of Tillie on a two-way deal. You have to find those good price ranges to really invest in, and the G League is a good place to do it, especially when your team replicates the pro style of that you're trying to do. So, obviously kind of looking ahead, not really sure, who will be available, things like that, but it'll definitely be, a great launching pad for guys to just really have NBA careers jump off. And then especially for the Grizzlies, getting guys in their system, they practice at FedEx Forum. They do everything at FedEx Forum other than their games at the Landers Center, so it's easy for Zach Kleiman to get his eyes on the guys and see how they practice. You really like they're connected. It's the Hustler basically just a mini Grizzlies. You have other G League teams who, are hours away. They don't even own the G League team, which is where you have more of the difficulties in, prioritizing, player development versus the team. So the Grizzlies have a really good foundation with the hustle, and it will only get better. You know, they'll have to evaluate talent, figure out what they want to do there, but they set up a really nice foundation to be successful with it.
And I think that that actually starts this year because, Brandon, as we look over the next 12 months, okay, you look at the fact that if you have five front court guys that you really consider on the Grizzlies right now, you've got Jarrett, you've got Steven Adams, Brandon Clark, Xavier Tillman, and Kyle Anderson, okay? You know that Jarrett's going to be here. You assume that Xavier Tillman's going to be here. But, okay, I know that Steven Adams and Brandon Clark still have multiple years on their contract. Could you potentially see them involved in trades? There's an option there. And, of course, Kyle Anderson on an expiring contract. My point is that there easily could be multiple positions in the front court that would need to be filled after the summer of 2022, starting next year. And the guy that stands up as being the most logical guy, and the Grizzlies hope it is Santi Aldama. And, along with him, Killian Tillie, and even to an extent, Yves Pons. But my point that I'm getting at is I feel like that for fans who attend these games, possibly the thing to watch out for the most is the development of Santi Aldama. How will he be able to develop? To me, that seems to be one of the top headlines for South Haven, because if he can really step up his game and show a quick learning curve, that could be something the Grizzlies can trust for him to step into a role if they need a front court rotation spot filled as early as next year.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it, Shawn. From everything that I've gathered, obviously I'm not insanely sourced, but basically the Grizzlies do kind of hope that Aldama is that guy, whether it's trades through consolidation or whatever. But when that front court, that very solid front court the Grizzlies have, gets thinned up with moves, that Aldama can be that guy. I know they were very high on him coming out of the draft. They were pumped to get him at 30. They very excited to get Tillie on a two-way last year. He didn't even make it to the bubble because they just wanted him to get reps with the Grizzlies, and he really played well late in the season. In his spot minutes. So you have the intrigue there between both of those guys, and especially if the Grizzlies do make a move this season, whoever's performing better in South Haven likely gets the nod, to maybe get rotation minutes or, have less assignment days than the other. So if Aldama shines or Tillie shines, and the Grizzlies move Steven Adams and Brandon Clark, and all of a sudden there's that, emergency big off the bench, it'll be interesting to see how they prioritize it. But I would imagine whoever's picking up on things quicker in South Haven will get the head start.
It's going to be a lot of fun to see. And I wanted to ask you at least 10 questions about Yves Pons, but I will say that, all joking aside, there also seems to be a bit of excitement there as well when it comes to this Hustle team. I know we talk about the development of key guys we hope's there for the future and things like that. There's some fun talents in the open court, especially Yves Pons and others that are going to be there. Your thoughts on that? And if you wouldn't mind just briefly kind of laying out how the schedule looks like for the G League. I know it's a little bit different than the NBA, perhaps a little bit spread out, but just a couple of guys who will be really exciting to see that we haven't really talked about yet, but also how the upcoming schedule, maybe for the rest of this year, looks like for the Hustle, Brandon.
So, we touched a little bit on Shaq. Anyone who's kind of followed along knows, get him in the open court. He's offense and defensively. He's either going to, he can send a shot 10 rows up in the stand, and he can throw down a dunk and put three guys on a poster. He's just super exciting. Just a guy we haven't touched on, Matthew Hurt. Highly touted prospect coming out of high school. Played pretty well at Duke, but they were underwhelming Duke team, so he kind of got a little bit of the blame for that. Ended up going undrafted, I believe, signed a two-way deal with Houston, got cut because Armani Brooks was phenomenal for them, and he ended up getting that two-way spot. Comes in, had a terrible shooting night in their first game the other Friday, but then in their game Sunday, really kind of slow start, being in the front court with all the other guys, his minutes were shorter, but then he drops like 12 or 16 points in the fourth, making 4 threes, went 5 for 5 from the field, one. Like, he played really well. So I think he's kind of the guy that we haven't touched on that could really be fun for this Hustle team. Just because he's, obviously you're not a 5-star prospect, top guy coming out of high school for no reason. So he'll be really interesting. And the G League schedule is really, really weird this year. They're kind of testing out a tournament. So the first 12 games are basically this showcase cup. So they play 12 games, or they play 12 games, and then depending on how the standings go, they have the showcase cup, and the top 2 teams in each kind of mini conference division, and then like the top 3 teams record wise outside of that play in a little mini tournament, win money, all that jazz. They play 2 games, and then the other teams will play just 2 kind of random games, just kind of for show, for fun, just to, because part of it's too, not just, the teams want to win the cup, they want to win, but it's also a showcase for all the G League talent. So those are the first 14 games of the season. 12, in a sense, resume builders, getting where you need to be in the standings. And then you have like a mini 2-game playoff round. And then right after Christmas, I think it technically starts the 27th, the regular season really begins. And they'll play a 36-game regular season. The records are swiped clean. Kind of going a little bit to baseball. I can't remember if it's AA or AAA where they wipe it out kind of midway through. But so you start fresh for the final 36 games, and then it's more of a regular G League season. Play 36, top teams make the playoffs, single elimination to the finals, and best 2 out of 3. But it's been interesting for the Hustle because they had 12 days from the start of training camp to their first game. They played 2 games the other weekend, and then they were off for 10 days. 10 days. They don't play again until tomorrow, and they didn't play until not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before. So they've kind of had a chance for two training camps. So that they're poised well with the continuity from last year's roster to do make some noise in the Showcase Cup. But a lot depends on the assignment players as well. And those simulated games being back in Memphis where they can practice at the Forum has helped a ton. It helped with Dillon Brooks' recovery, but it also gives Sam Merrill, Aldama, Tillie, all those guys practice run with the hustle, you know, as well instead of just showing up on game day.
No, that's exciting to see. And I had no idea that actually, all joking aside, that actually makes me respect you even more with the fact that you've got that crazy of a setup when it comes to the G League. That is pretty crazy. So, but before we, end the show, do want to kind of do a little bit of a lightning round with you. So, true or false on these? Number one, fans who listen to the show, and thank you again, Fans Purdue, folks who listen to this show, watching on YouTube, one aspect of going to these hustle games is you never know who is going to be at these hustle games because the city of Memphis loves basketball. You could see John Moran and Zach Kleiman there one night, or you could see NBA scouts from other teams. It's a hodgepodge of some pretty well-known names that go to these hustle games. True or false, Brandon?
Oh, very, very true. Just kind of a random name I'll throw out there that is a scout, was with the Pelicans. I don't know if he's still there, but NBA legend Danny Ferry. He was there one game, talked to him in the media room a little bit. So, and he's out and about in the stands. It's very true. You never know who you're going to run into down in South Haven.
True or false? Yves Pons will average 25 points, 5 assists, and 10 rebounds, 6 blocks per game.
Absolutely false.
Everything about you is absolutely false. True or false? When it comes to this team, who do you feel if fans want to go to these games, who do you feel are the top 2 or 3 guys that will really be the offensive sources for this team this year?
Including or not including assignment guys? Including Sam Merrill, Santi Aldama, and I'm going to throw in a third one, Shaq Buchanan.
That makes good sense. That really wasn't a true false question, but you, if anybody, know that my grammar skills are not that great. His name is Brandon Abraham. If you've seen me and him go back and forth with each other, it's out of friendship. He absolutely is one of my favorite people when it comes to covering the Grizzlies because he's so hardworking, yet even more talented. A great source when it comes to all things Grizzlies and the hustle. Brandon, where can folks find your work over at Grizzly Bear Blues? Also on Twitter, and just do you have anything coming up yourself as far as promoting the hustle or obviously your Grizzlies coverage?
Yeah, so you can find me on social media at BC Abraham. I pretty much exclusively just do all my NBA hustle work on Twitter. And then really the only thing to plug is, do come out and see the hustle. It's fun. It's exciting. It's a little bit of a sore spot right now, but defense is optional in the G League for the most part. So you get to see a lot of fun, high flying, high scoring games. So come check it out. Jason March has a good squad down there. And Shawn, I just want to say thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure. It's fun bantering back and forth, talking trash, but it's even more fun, having in-depth, high knowledge basketball talks with you, man. It's always a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine, bud. It absolutely is. His name is Brandon Abraham. You can find him at BC Abraham on Twitter. You can find all his great work at Grizzly Bear Blues as well. A lot of the games will be covered for the hustle via the Grizzly Bear Blues Twitter site at SBN Grizzlies. But me and him both do a lot of pieces. Brandon, I believe, has a weekly hustle report that will give you all things hustle. So if you want to keep up, besides the crazy setup of the schedule, Brandon is the number one source for you to do exactly that. Brandon, can't thank you enough for joining us this morning, sir.
Thanks for having me, Shawn.
If you'll stick with us for just a second, his name is Brandon Abraham. Again, you can find him at BC Abraham on Twitter. Myself, you can find me at StatsSAC, the show at Locked On Grizz. Thank you so much for making Locked On Grizzlies your first listen of the day. Check out Locked On Fantasy Basketball with Josh Lloyd, the number one source for fantasy basketball in the world, as your second listen of the day. For Brandon Abraham, my name's Shawn Coleman. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon here on the Locked On Grizzlies podcast. Go Grizzlies!